Oh, hold up. I'm getting feedback. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Faith, Liberty, and Practice. We are live. I'm here with Cato. Cato, how you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you for having me on.
Well, I'm happy to have you on. Anytime someone from the group chat has a topic, I'm like, you're on. You know, the group chat doesn't even have to ask to come on. They get to say, I want to come on Friday. I'm like, you're on Friday. No problem. I love everyone in the group chat is amazing. Love talking to you guys.
Yeah, that's the beauty.
So you were recently on. I mean, it's actually we were literally talking 12 minutes ago or something in the voice chats, and I'm like, oh, we gotta record this soon. So you recently went on. Before you get into the topic of bioleninism and all that, two things. One, tell the audience a little bit about yourself, whatever you want to say, and then we'll go into it.
Yeah, I am a person on Twitter, and I'm a Catholic, and I'm Brazilian, and I guess that's what my claim to fame is. I'm the Brazilian guy.
Well, you also got claim to fame of recently going on academic Asian stream.
That's too.
That's pretty big.
Right? I didn't expect it to happen, but it did.
Yeah, I didn't know Brazilians got a affirmative accent. Just give it throwing the high shows.
Mm-hmm. It was insane. It was.
So what was it like, man? How's the Is he cool?
He is really cool. The whole gang was really, really cool. Like before, when we were like at the backstage, so to speak, like Binary was really cool. And D was also really cool.
Yeah.
AA himself was really nice as well. So it was a pretty good experience. It was weird to be, because I've been watching it for quite a while now, but it's quite different being on the other side, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, man. No, those pre-live like backstage conversations, or like after it ends and people are still in the lobby, like are my favorite conversations. I wish there's a way to set up a backup recording, because like I had Belkov on one time, and we recorded and it ended, and we just stayed here talking for like an hour. And the conversation only got like we ended it because like, okay, it's pretty late. We covered everything we want to cover. Let's get to bed. And then we stayed up for an hour, just continuing having the same conversation. I'm like, why did we end this? This is an amazing conversation.
Yeah,
let's keep it going.
It's really cool when that happens, huh?
Yeah, oh yeah. So I loved what's his name, James Gittiman at the Blackbird podcast. He had him set up where he would like record everything was happening on a separate thing, and so he would have recordings of the pre and post show conversation. And he would only upload the parts that were live, and then he would on Patreon you can get the pre-recorded conversation.
Oh, that's cool.
And so like something awesome happens pre or after, he would just upload that as a Patreon bonus. I'm like, that's the way to do it.
Yeah, that's a pretty brilliant idea.
He had Tom Woods on. Their pre-episode conversation was even better than the regular episode.
I think that's the way to go when you have a Patreon or something of the like.
Well, speaking of Patreon, Oscar Tonism does have a Patreon, so if it's in the description, you guys should definitely go and sub, because going live and all this kind of stuff kind of costs some money. Like right now, this episode would not be on Spotify because I ran out of storage on the StreamYard thing, so it'll be a YouTube only because I cannot download the recording later. So, okay, so Cato, this is explaining me like I'm 5. I'm a kind of a tipsy 5-year-old right now, so keep that in mind. So explain bioleninism like I'm 5.
Okay. Imagine you want to be the king of the playground. Okay?
Okay.
But the current king of the playground and his royalty are the preppy kids, like the better off kids. But you can't count on the poor kids that hang out at the playground because they're closer to the kings of the playground than they are to you, because you're a fucking weirdo and a misfit.
Okay.
So who do you put your faith in? You put your faith on the kids that eat glue, the weirdos, the autistic people, the fat kid, the special ed kid. So you talk to them and say, okay, we're going to take over the playground. And once you take over the playground with the help of those weirdos, they didn't have anything before you, so they're going to owe you a lot. And that's bioleninism. It's basically using the biological outliers, the weirdos, the misfits, the fatties, the retards, the can I say retards? Can I say trannies?
You know what? I don't know. I've never gone on a strike before, so we're gonna just run with it.
Okay.
And then if it goes bad, I'll go just find some way to do it again.
Okay. So you instead of and why Leninism? I think that's one of the big important part, because Leninism did this on the basis of class. Mm-hmm. They would use people who had a lot of resentment towards the Tsar, and he would elevate those people who were very low class and who knew deep down they knew they weren't worthy of being on the top, but he elevated those who were not worthy. So those who are not worthy would everything they had would be due to the party. So they would so that would generate a lot of loyalty. Leninism and bioleninism are ways of generating loyalty to the party. Old schoolism did it on the grounds of class. Bioleninism does it on the grounds of biology, appealing to those who are to minorities, to people who have disabilities, people like racial minorities, sexual minorities, all the weirdos and misfits against all the beautiful and normal. That's why the resentment is such a big fuel, and it's very powerful because it generates a lot of loyalty.
It's the victim. The victims can claim. Okay, so they use the victims to, I guess not resentment. I guess you could say victims is a weird word. I'm seeing the victimization status everyone uses as like a stand-in, but it's not really victims because it's something that is. I guess you could. I'm trying to figure out how to word it here, because it's like you could say trans people could be victims of falling into the ideology of transgenderism, but you really couldn't say racial minorities are inherently victims. Actual victims, but they claim the victims because they live in an oppressive society, but they're not actual victims. So I guess
I think victim is falling into their narrative. I think it's like they're the outcasts, the outlier, those who are on the fringes. I guess that's a better way to.
Okay.
It's a way of bringing those who are on the fringes to the top, because that those who are the fringes would never be able to get to the top on their own.
Okay, that makes sense. So do you have any examples? Like, do you have any examples of kind of like a bioleninism in effect in America? Like, I could think of a few on the top of my head, but I would prefer you give an example because you seem to know more about the topic. So that's kind of what's an example?
Rachel Levine, or what? I don't remember what his name was. The one person who became an admiral or something.
Let me look it up here.
On the grounds that he's trans. All those people who are being elevated.
Dr. Rachel Levine, yeah.
Yeah. Though every single one who are being elevated and lionized because they are trans, because they're black, because they're this, because they're that. That's like bioleninism in action. Those people who 10 years ago, 8 years ago would be nowhere. They're not be mainstreamed. Now they're being mainstreamed. And they are being mainstream because everything they have is because they're weirdos. If they were normal, if they were cis heterosexual white man like he was before, but not a sexual deviant, he wouldn't be elevated. But he's being elevated now that he's a sexual deviant, and that's everything he has is because of not because of his merit or anything else, because of his weirdness.
So this seems like a way. How do I put this? If we should have gone live. We should record this because then I could have added beeps. I'm trying to say things without getting it taken down. This seems like a way for society to reward, or people in power to reward bad behavior, pretty much. Like it's like instead of it being like, what's the economic term I'm thinking of here? Not low time preference. It's an economic. I can't think of the economic term, but it's an economic term for like, dude, sorry, man, my brain is not wanting to work today. Like I worked in the theater, the heat got to me, and my brain is not wanting to sink.
It's like status, redistributing status, because this isn't necessarily about wealth per se. It's about status.
About status. Okay. So it seems like a way of society. So this is a way how the left and the modern regime kind of elevates and rewards these deviant actors and deviant behaviors, because they know once they are in position of power, they won't turn their back on it, because everything they have is due to the regime.
Basically.
Okay.
It's kind of, in a lot of ways, subverting the last will be the first. It's subverting the elevation of the meek of heart that we see in Christianity, but it's not the meek of heart. It's not the poor. It's the deviant. Is the sinner, and elevating the sinner because of his sin, not because of his repentance. It
seems like maybe I'm listening too much to Rene Girard, but it seems like they reverse like the scapegoat. Like you have a scapegoat that you would pin off society's blames on, and they would blame them for things and they go away. Where here it's like they are celebrating they're taking the problem child or the problem issue, instead of punishing them and sending them away, they're elevating them and celebrating them, and then kind of reversing the effects of the scapegoat. I don't know. I'm probably listening too much to Rod recently trying to apply it to this, but it just seems like you describing it sounds like a very like reverse version of like a scapegoat thing Rod would talk about.
I think so. I think that's a pretty apt way of describing it. And one interesting thing about it is that it can only work in a political system where the suffrage has been expanded to such a way that every single person can have power. Every single group has the potential to affect things. So you're gonna build a coalition. You could be building a coalition on the basis of class, like I was saying, but because that doesn't fly anymore, and that's that coupled with Gramsci's cultural Marxism. It's just a different. It's another tentacle of this beast that just keeps dragging the West down.
No, absolutely. It seems like something also that couldn't exist if it was a natural hierarchy. Because these people are so inefficient at their jobs and being rewarded for their inefficiency because of their deviant behavior, because of who they identify as or whatever they are. It's like if in an actual market or an actual situation of power, they're so affected it would fail, but because everything is so propped up and prolonged and managerialized and really can't fail due to like one person can suck at their job and hosting's not going to collapse. And because of that, we can just keep pumping in more and more of these deviants, and get more and more loyal servers and more people who are worse and worse at their jobs.
Yeah,
so it seems like this will eventually result in its own collapse.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is that, like you're saying, about the collapse, it has, because you're elevating people who don't have the cognitive tools to create the positions they're on. They're not going to be able to maintain those positions, so that's inevitably going to lead to collapse.
It's like Kamala Harris being everyone hates her. She has the lowest approval ratings of any vice president like ever. Everyone ignores her when she's on screen, and she is the vice president.
Yep.
Yeah,
basically, like, or Sotomayor. I don't know if you saw this earlier this week. She made it clear that she doesn't know the difference between de jure and de facto. And she credits being a affirmative action whatever
I was actually going to bring that up. It's like, what are the mechanisms in place that kind of like, just not like they're literally picking individuals. I mean, they are in some cases, but it's not like they're saying this trans person, this black guy, this gay person, this black woman. You know, there are mechanisms in place that elevate at least people who are more competent than others. You know, so what is the mechanism? Like affirmative action is clearly one of them. What are other kind of mechanisms you could say that are in place that suffered people into the program and elevates them due to bioleninism?
I think affirmative action is the chief method, but I think ESG is it ESG equity? Governance?
I don't know what it stands for. I'm having Tommy on in 5 days to explain all of it to me like I'm 5.
Okay, so it's equity, whatever. All the equity and initiatives are part of that. Because you're trying to have more minorities, you're trying to have more sexual minorities, all kinds of minorities in positions of power. So because those people do not have what it takes to be on those positions, so that's like the theme. That's the theme that's going to be repeated.
Look at the Marvel movies and DC movies. You know how many of them suck. Like Batman was so bad it wasn't even released. But it was pride for having like a big female director and a female cast and all this kind of thing. Just like were they fit for the job? You know, it's like how many companies that promote someone who's just not good for the job, but the company has to basically fire them or bail them out or just go under because they elevated someone who wasn't even fit for the job.
Yeah, and the thing about it is that the institutional side of things is not as pronounced. Like you have initiatives like ESG that have it in the name that we're gonna have 50% female executives on whatever company. We're gonna have these many gay executives, whatever, blah blah blah. But you have this. It feels like it's something that is both covert and overt in a lot of ways, because you have those initiatives, but they have good sounding names and things that a reasonable normie can't disagree with. Like a normie, despite equality being a bad thing, a normie still believes theoretically in equality
and diversity.
Yeah,
it's like a great example. Did you see what happened recently? There's a huge affirmative action case coming before the Supreme Court soon. And it was who was it? Clarence Thomas was like, and it was asking one of the guys who was like the defendant, the lawyer defending Harvard in the whole case. Like, what does diversity have to do with improving educational standards? And the guy couldn't even define why it was good. He would just cite why everyone agrees that it's good.
Yep.
Like, that's like peak normie response. And this guy's a top tier lawyer for one of the biggest colleges in the world. And he couldn't even define it.
And it's just become part of the lingo. It's like if you ask a normie Catholic about hardcore theology, they won't know. But yeah, so what I wasn't thinking of ESG, I was thinking of DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. I think diversity, equity, and inclusion is the big thing of how bioleninism is being promoted in Western governments and Western corporations and governance in general.
Okay. Who came up with who came up with a description of bioleninism? Like, who was the guy who wrote this out?
It's a blogger called Spandrel. It's a new reactionary blogger.
I've heard the name here and there, but like I hear him broad like Nicolai and Curtis Yava, but never as often.
Spandrel. So yeah, it was Spandrel who came up with bioleninism. It's a 3-part essay about it, and it's a pretty good essay. I highly recommend it, and he makes a lot of points about the structures of other political structures. Like, for instance, one of the points that he makes, and it's something that it had never occurred to me, is that feudalism is the transposition of the hierarchy of an army into peacetime.
Mm.
So it's like the hierarchy of the army. So you have the king, that is the general on top, and you have the sergeants, which are the lords, and it's literally that transposition of that hierarchy of an army into peacetime,
Hmm.
and geographically localized. It's one of those things that's like, if I had thought about it just for five minutes, I would have realized it. But he explains it so well.
I love reading things like that. Like reading something like, oh yeah, if I hadn't put this, if I had theorized and thought about this for a little bit, I would have figured it out. But it's nice to see having someone tell it to me.
Mm-hmm.
Like I had like constant reaction to reading what was it, Hopper's Economy, Society, and History, and it
Mm-hmm.
kind of outlines like how like economically theorizes how language came to be and how cities came to be built and that kind of stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, yeah, if I put this, if I sat down and I really saw it, I could come to these same conclusions. And it was a very enjoyable read. As much as I have my problems with Hopper being a Kantian, that is
Mm-hmm.
and you can't really. It's all theory. You can't really say any of this is actually true, but as series go of a noble kind of saying, it's a pretty reasonable one.
Mm-hmm.
But huh. So I mean, seems like stopping bioleninism would be pretty easy. I mean, how to put this? It'd be how to put this? Getting rid of affirmative action, getting rid of the, getting rid of ESG. I mean, it's easy, but I mean, not as like easy to accomplish, easy to spot what to do. You know, like and the mechanism that enforce it seemed pretty obvious, or not enforce it, but like bring it to be. You know, mechanisms in place for it to happen seem pretty obvious to spot.
Mm-hmm. I think Elon Musk is showing a pretty solid uh, framework on how to do it, because he basically, I saw a tweet today about how he had basically ended Twitter's Blackbirds or something, which
Mm-hmm.
is the people on Twitter who are responsible for that kind of uh, diversity, and for enforcing those diversity rules and the diversity quotas. Because when he arrived at Twitter, he realized that he had 100 managers for each engineer or something like that. I don't remember the exact ratio.
He found a managerial class and was
He
like, why?
found, yeah, he found a managerial class and completely fired them.
That's a
And
very like Elon Musk autistic thing to walk into. Like, wait, why does so many fucking managers fire most
mhm,
of them, and not even
yeah,
question it why? Because he knows how business works. He's like, obviously this makes no sense. And if he had read James Byrne, he'd probably be like, oh, this is what he was talking about.
yeah, it was it's incredible that how fickle and frail those things are,
Mm-hmm.
because you can really just eliminate it just by eliminating managers.
You see, my thing with what's his name, Curtis Yarvin's talking about how it's like the real power rests in the managers. You know,
Mm-hmm.
like and the managers are. This actually explains why so many things suck nowadays. It's like all the managers are being hired based on bioleninism.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, oh, also everything runs by this managerial class, and all the managers are the enemy and weird
Yeah.
and celebrated for and giving these positions out of their weirdness. That's
Yeah. Every time you see a job opening that says, "Oh, we hire minorities," it's a equal employment uh, business or something like that. I've seen that a bunch of times. Every time I see that, I think, okay, these guys are putting full on violentalism in action, because equal opportunity employer, I think that's what they call
yeah.
themselves. And that's what they're doing. They're saying, okay, we are complying with that stuff because the law kind of complies. So if they have an HR manager who is into that kind of stuff, it's just a matter of time until they start hiring more. And and it's funny because my father worked in academia all his life, and he's pretty left. He's pretty left wing. And one thing that I remember talking to him when as I grew older, and we were talking about gay people, and he said that whenever a university department hired one gay person, within 5 years, half of the department would be comprised of gay people. In 10 years, it would only have gay people. And that's how it works, because they're going to bring themselves together. If you give the chance to one, they're going to start bringing more and more and more, because you started with those that haven't high enough status to enter, and then there's going to start bringing those low status ones.
This really makes so, like, now that you've explained it to me, I'm like, oh no, this absolutely makes perfect sense. Like, this is a great descriptor. It makes 100% sense for, like, it's not like it's how do I put this? When you describe it, it's not like it was a new idea. It was just a description for like what you see, which is what I like about it. Like, oh, everyone kind of sees this. If you pay attention, you kind of see it. But having a description for it is really useful, and knowing the mechanism in place, like, it really makes it its own idea instead of just an observation. This is incredible.
Yeah, so, and you see it everywhere. Once you learn what it is, you see it everywhere, because that's one of the biggest mechanisms in the cathedral, or the egregore, or whatever you want to call it.
Huh. So, I'm trying to. My mind's racing. Like 5 different things I want to like go through here. I'm trying to pick one. Let's see. There's bioleninism. These mechanisms in place for it. I'm trying to think here about the question. So it seems like something like, I'm trying to think of how there's no way to really explain this to a normie, because to a normie, ideas like diversity, equality, all these things they're associated with the definition of the word good. Like, someone said define good, they could say diversity and equality, and it would be perfect for today's age, defining in our minds. So there's really like no way to. I think there's no way to really broach this conversation with a normie in these terms.
Not in these terms, but I think you can. For instance, some people, there's some. One way that you could is bringing up how for police work and for firemen and for the army, they're lowering the physical standards for hiring for women. So you can is the Coast Guard
going to change the swimming standards for certain race?
So you can explain. So you can explain to them that you're creating the means of hiring people who are not worthy, and things are not going to go as well. So you can expand and say, oh, that's also applying to trannies and those other people. That would be one way that I would probably try.
Yeah, it makes sense. Is there anything else? Like, I think I've got a good grasp on. I think the audience has a good grasp on. You've explained it very well, Cato. Thank you for coming on for that.
Thank you.
Is there anything we've missed you want to cover on that? Or is there any like a kind of a anything extra attached to this? Like any other ideas that kind of incorporate well into this bioleninism thing? Like what's a good thing that can be like? Because I mean, we talked about managerial elites. We talked about the cathedral. It seems to be very much in the same vein of like very key dissonant right neo-reaction stuff. What's a good thing to kind of like pair with it? Someone's gonna say read bioleninism by Spandrel, and they were gonna go read something else to kind of pair with it. What would you say is a good thing to study along with it?
I think bioleninism and the managerial revolution, even though the managerial revolution didn't end up happening, and I think Leviathan and its enemies is the spiritual successor of the managerial revolution. But I think finding the means to understand the managerial structures will be you're going to have a much more complete understanding of how it's applied. The bioleninism is applied, and how and if you know how to end the managerial class, you can see how you can end bioleninism. I think bioleninism is a byproduct. It's not.
Now, there also appears to be like a flip side to this, to where the same processes that are elevating these dissident groups, you could say, or these weirdos, or the autistic burger eating kids on the playground.
Mhm.
Also, when they make new policies that go into effect, like minimum wage laws, it also seems to hurt the same class they're trying to elevate. The same people.
Yeah, I think because they put those people on the spotlight. People get that when someone's been hired because they're not good enough. They're not good enough to have been hired. I think people grasp that something is off about it, and the more that's elevated, the more that's lionized, the more likely it is that you're gonna have a backlash. You end up having the whole in one day for no reason at all, but for no specific reason. And I think those initiatives contribute to, and then one day for no reason at all, Caesar crossed the Rubicon.
Yeah. Well, we've gone for 30 minutes. This is about the average lengths of a Playing like I'm 5. I try to keep them short and sweet. They're very focused. We get in, we explain the topic like I'm 5, do the basics, and we kind of close it out. But perfect. I don't want to try to ask the people, if they wanted to look more into bioleninism specifically, what would you recommend? Are there any good podcasts, books, articles? Like, what's something you recommend if they want to go deeper into this conversation of bioleninism?
I think you can't go wrong with the source material, which is Spandrel. Spandrel's. I'm going to send you the link for the articles. I think the articles.
I think Skeptical Waves has it, so I'll throw it in the description.
Yeah, it's Skeptical Waves has the articles, and our boy Charlemagne also has a video talking about it.
Oh yeah, I think I've seen that. I love that guy's content.
Me too.
He makes. The only thing I didn't like about him is he said no one should read philosophy, and I'm like, dude, no, you're wrong on that one. Like, I get where you're coming from. Cause I every time someone's an anti-philosophy take, I'm like, okay, I get it. You know philosophy before it's done past Enlightenment, but pre-Enlightenment Reformation, when it was good philosophy, made everything better. It wasn't like it was, when modern philosophy. I asked one guy, like, what do you think? I was like, new coworker, and he was talking about philosophy. I'm like, what do you think philosophy means? He goes, all I know is that you can't know that you exist. I'm like, oh my God.
Oh Lord, yeah.
If you think that's what philosophy means, and you're already too far gone.
Yeah, you're
like, if that is all philosophy is, and I agree, philosophy is going to be a thing, but it's not what it is. And so it's frustrating. I mean, you can't blame people for hating it, but it's like just read some history, read some requirements, and know what the fuck you're talking about.
Yeah. I've always interpreted his opposition to reading philosophy, as something that he doesn't think should be accessible. It's more from a elitist position rather than being against philosophy itself. That has always been my interpretation.
Yeah, and that probably is what his argument is, and it makes. See, I say that makes sense, and I think, well, what is theology? Like, theology is the first philosophy. So people sit and have access to the truth of the faith and the deeper understandings. They don't need it. I mean, a little later goes to mass, doesn't know what divine simplicity is. Just as Catholic as everybody else. But it's like there is something beautiful about having the answers where you want them. I know if I have a question about Catholicism, I have a catechism. I pop it open and research it. I go to CatholicAnswers.com. So I think there's. But also, if I wasn't an elitist, I would be like, yeah, the peasants didn't have access to this.
Yeah, I usually lean towards the elitism than anything else. But yeah, I get your point.
Yeah, if I had read more Evola, I'd probably be an elitist. But I will not read Evola. I have tried. I'm not doing it. I've given up. I will stick to John Baudrillard and other postmoderns. And then few distant white guys and Catholic stuff. I'm not doing Evola. Speaking of what, I gotta get you on for a Baudrillard episode sometime.
We got it. That stuff is fun.
We gotta cover System of Objects eventually. We gotta get you, Louis, you, Bodes, and maybe Bird. If I can get Bird on, get everyone on for like a whole.
Oh, that'd be cool.
He follows me and we interact on Twitter, but I've never invited him on a podcast. Yeah,
you should.
I would love to get Bird on. He's every time I enter the cave drops, I'm like, stop what you're doing. 1 minute of the field, stop. I got to download this and hit play, and then we'll get back to work. Like I have to listen to that.
Yeah, he's a smart guy.
Oh, incredibly smart. I want him to go back on Pete's show and do a Nick Land episode. You know, like he needs to go on and do a Nick Land episode, so I don't have to suffer through Feng Numina. Like, I can't.
Oh my gosh!
I've tried. The moment I see the binary code, I throw the book out. I'm like, no, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing this.
Yeah, Feng Numina is the only purpose of Feng Numina is bringing hipster chicks. Like just so you can appear to be an extremely intellectual guy.
There's a TikTok from this chick on TikTok, and she says, "I can mention Nick Land and sound smart. Have I read Feng Numina? Hell no. Have I read Animorphs? Fuck yes."
That's exactly it. It's one of those books that you should only read with your armpits, as in you should only carry it around under your arm. So people think you read it, but you haven't actually read it.
That's why I need a Nick Land t-shirt. You know, I need a CCRU Nick Land t-shirt.
Yep.
That exists.
Yeah, it's totally okay to be a poser about Nick Land because no one will ever read it, so they can't call you out.
Yeah.
They can pull the same thing like music people say, oh, you like that band? Name 3 albums. They're not gonna know three words by Nick Land.
Yeah,
so
no.
You can be a poser all you want. It's really awesome.
Listen, I talked to somebody about accelerationism, and they were like, accelerationism is gay. I'm like, that's kind of the point. We need to make things more gay and faster.
Yes.
This is my destruction accelerationism, not the actually building to something.
It's the point. It's the point. The gayer, the better.
Yes, we need more drag shows. We need more drag library story hours. You know, and listen, if you keep putting up kids through that, you're eventually gonna get a Caesar. You know, I'm not saying it's good. I'm just saying if you want the Caesar,
that's how you get it.
Exactly. Now we still didn't want to create Caesar. We should let him occur naturally.
Yeah.
A little Nick Land goes along. Yes, 2-bit, 100%. I've listened to a few podcasts and I've read, I think, what's it called? Dark Enlightenment or something. And that was enough. That's just enough Nick Land for me to talk about it and have fun with it. But I wouldn't. I watched Meltdown. That's it. I'm not going any deeper.
Have you read Xenosystems?
Some of Xenosystems. I remember the whole. I found like on Skeptic Waves a bunch of it. I listened to it like a day.
Yeah, really Xenosystem is good because it's just a bunch of tweets, basically. So it's.
I love how he popped. I thought he was dead. We had the tweet in like 3 months. I thought he was dead. Then he popped back up for an Elon tweet and
yeah, it was beautiful. It was beautiful.
Oh, I love it. He's someone I would love to have on a podcast just to just to stare at and go, hey, what do you think of Wall-E?
Yeah, he's one of those guys that I would like to just sit down and have a beer with.
Oh, absolutely.
Or acid.
Yes, you need one or two. You need something either very mild or very extreme.
Yeah.
You can't do anything mid with Nick Land. Well, Cato, thank you so much for coming on. What are your plugs?
Thank you for having me over. My plugs are my Twitter and my Twitter. I don't have my internet presence now. It's just Twitter. I used to be notorious on a different social media website, but now that's dead.
You guys might notice, but Cato here did the graphic design for the website. This profile pic you're seeing right here on the on my account right now, the Osteotomism Prayers Praxis, that was from Cato.
Yes, so if you want, just give me a shout.
Yes, if it's on Osteotomism and it's good looking, it was Cato. If it's ugly as hell, no, I swear to God, in 5 minutes on some cheap ass website. That's my that's how we do it. Well, Cato, again, thanks for coming on. It's been a lot of fun.
Thank you for having me over.
Let's see, guys, you got nothing new coming out from my podcast here. In 5 days, we got Tommy Salmons coming on for Blame Like I'm 5 ESG. I'm planning to finish. We're gonna finish the Tree Reformers by Zach Mariton. I'm working my way through Scruton and for Luis Bobodes. Yeah, we got some good stuff coming out, but not for a while. It's gonna be a little bit. What was this? What I wanted to cover? Fuck, what was it? I had to. I am gonna get 2-bit Jason on over here for Explain 5 with Nate Gerard, because he got me reading Gerard and listening to Gerard, and now I cannot stop. Why does anyone listen to that Canadian Jordan Peterson? You listen to Renee Zor talk about the story of Joseph. It was, I mean, I was at work today cutting lines in my headphones. I literally had to stop and just like stop and just like, okay, no. The story of Joseph, because I don't know about you, but being when I was raised Protestant, if I hear a Bible story, I imagine the characters as vegetables. Like, I cannot hear the story of Esther without thinking about the Esther VeggieTale. And today, listening to the story of Joseph, all I could picture was Larry and singing the song and the brothers being like the Paul Grape. I could not picture actual people. The Old Testament is all vegetables to me.
I think VeggieTales did a good job with you.
Oh, without doubt. They do an incredible job with the Bible stories, man. And the parody songs. I might pop VeggieTales on tonight, honestly. Just some nostalgia hits. That was fun. Anyway, thanks for coming on. Thanks for listening, everybody. Hit subscribe, like, share, the notification bell, go to Patreon. All that good YouTuber shit I have to say at the end of every episode. Yeah, have a good night.